Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining the channel. Good to see you again. Hope you're all well. Today on the bench I got a Marantz 2270, and this is the way it was brought to me by my client. It has no cover and it had no feet, so I'm assuming it was in a wooden case. I'm not sure. So he probably took the case off and brought me just the guts, which is fine, just as long as we are careful with it and don't damage anything. These things are, I don't get many Marantzes on my bench, but these are always a treat to have. This thing is heavy. This is a beast in itself. It's got a massive transformer, two big power amplifiers, and then everything else is well built. These are always a treat to work on too, because the build quality in these things is phenomenal. And you can see why people are always after these Marantzes, because they are built well. And let's see how this one performs. This was brought to me because it needs a repair. It has no AM. AM is dead. So we're going to dig into that and we're going to fix that. And he also said this thing's been serviced before. It's had recap or partial recap. I don't know. I think it's had a full recap. And he wants me to check it over, make sure that the previous tech did everything correctly. And as far as I can see, everything looks good from that aspect. And it's had an LED retrofit as well, and they put on a new power cord. I'm not sure why they do this. This is a little bit overkill. This is a 12 gauge power cord on an amplifier that plugs into house wiring that's 14 gauge. So it's kind of redundant and overkill, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of this, but hey, it's industrial grade, I guess. So yeah, I have the bottom panel off, and I was looking at it. Everything looks okay, nice and clean. A little bit of dust because it's been sitting here for a few weeks and there's no cover on it, but we'll get that sorted too. All right, let's plug it in and see what, confirm our AM does not work. All right, going for power up. Relay click. And we are on FM right now. We have no signal. Let's see if we can find a station with no antenna. Muting. I got no left channel. It's very quiet too. Let me check my wiring. Okay, my speaker's all correct. Let's see why we have a problem here. Left channel. Mono. That brings in both channels, so the amplifier is working. Is that switch broken? Be careful of the copyright here. Huh. Okay, let's go to AM. Silent. Something is wrong with this receiver in that it's not putting out the sound it should. All right. Let me feed a tone in. Maybe we can figure out what's going on with this thing. Maybe it's just a bad speaker. Okay, 1000 hertz tone fed into auxiliary. It is turned on. Left and right. Let me confirm I got both channels. I'll disconnect to the right. Left is dead. left, right is dead. Okay. So both amplifiers working. I don't know if we got full power and I'm not going to crank it. But for FM, we only have one channel. The left. It's very weak. Alright, so here's an antenna hooked up. We're not getting any stereo. Muting, loudness. So we got a left FM in the left channel, and it sounds pretty bad too. It's not the greatest sounding. Well, maybe it's my speaker. I don't know. Let's try AM again.
We're kind of right on the cusp.
AM's working. It wasn't working before.
And so it's a chicken and the egg piece here because
Maybe it's the switch is just
13.
effed up.
Well, our listeners actually, they might remember the recent feature. Call and I see, remember that HF.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to go after this switch. I don't know what's been done to it, if it's something's been sprayed into it, or now we're getting FM hum on the phono. Auxiliary coming through clear. Hum. Okay. So apparently the AM is working. Maybe.
Climate campaign.
It feels muted because I got this at half volume and I can hardly hear it. There's something going on here. Alright, here's a look at the underbelly. Everything looks pretty clean and unmolested. They did do an upgrade to the power filter capacitors. They replaced, these are 15,000 microfarad or 63 volts. Now I don't know what the originals were, but it looks like it's been done okay. Got everything solid, the connections. Now the recapping, I see somebody's been putting Nichicon fine gold in here. This thing surprisingly has very few electrolytic caps. Here's the phono stage up here. There's one cap. That's it. And the rest of them are polystyrene. Here's a tantalums. Here's mylar, I guess they are. And there's one electrolytic. So pretty okay reliability there, I guess. Looking at this, I don't see a lot that's been done. This is the power board down here. You can't see it because I'm okay. Power board down here. Looks like somebody's been removing wires and tacking them back on. Looks like they had this thing out. Okay, let's look at the other side. Just enjoying a little Pepsi shooter. Thanks to my client. Okay, so this power supply board's been recapped as well. They put Nichicon fine golds and LNAC big capacitor here. Not really necessary to put audio grade caps in a power supply, but what's done is done. And these power amplifier modules only have two caps, and these are probably the input section right here. That's the only cap on these power amplifier boards. Up here, I'm not sure what this circuit is here. I don't know what it does. It doesn't look like anything familiar. That might have something to do with the FM muting or something like that. I'm not sure. Because the potentiometer is right here. There's the AM board here. And we know that's working because we heard it. And I think underneath is the FM board. And this would be all your tuner front end for your AM and FM in this box. So let's have a look at the function switch. Okay, here's the rat nest function switch. I already see a problem. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try and move some wires out of the way here. There is a ground here, and it looks like it's resting up against this terminal lug right here. It's touching. That might be grounding out one of our channels. I don't know. What is this thing doing here? It's like it's loose too. Okay, let me pull this board out. There's a phono stage here. Let's pull this board out and then I'll have a look at this ground here. Okay, 4 screws are out. The board is loose. Looks like somebody's had this board detached. These ones look factory, these ones don't. So they probably unsoldered these and flipped the board down. What's going on under here? Yeah, it's just a great big lug that's screwed to the chassis. Got about 50 wires tied to it. Is it tight? Yeah, it's tight. It's just got a lot of grounds. Okay, so that's the main ground for all of our signal wires. Let me put this back. I want to take a look at some of this. This looks good, it's just dirty. Yeah, they just replaced one capacitor. Very dirty. I'll clean that up. Another thing I noticed is we have 2SC458, 2SC458. These two transistors are known to go bad. So I'm going to replace those probably with a 2SC2240 or 2SC1845. We'll figure something out for these two. These have the silver legs that you can see they're all black with oxide. So those eventually will go bad. Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then we'll do that as well while we're here. I'm wondering if that line that was short at the ground, if that's cause for all our problems, or if there's maybe a broken wire here from being manipulated. Okay, I'm just testing it here, and we got both channels on our FM back, but it's still really quiet. That's full volume. That shouldn't be that quiet. Try that. Right channel's the same thing. Now I think this ground terminal here was folded down onto the connection and was grounding out the left channel. But it still doesn't explain why we got such low volume on the receiver itself. Let me hook up the... I got rid of the cable. This looks like a tone amplifier here. Left channel, right channel. Okay, well, the AM's working as well.
20 or 30,000 PC optimum points on
We have AM on both channels, but it's very quiet.
I'm James Dunn.
Is there a mute switch?
Chance of flurries, at least until we get into tonight, though. High of -12 for your sun. Wind chill going to be around -18 this afternoon. Risk of frostbite as well, so make sure you bundle up if you do plan on heading out. Tonight, 30% chance of flurries, like I mentioned. Going down to a low -15. Wind chill going to be near -22 overnight. To kick off the work week on Monday, mix of sun and cloud and a high.
Not sure if that's supposed to latch or not.
For what this week has been so far, -11. Some snow expected for Monday night at a low of -14. Still a mix of sun and cloud for Tuesday and a high of -12. Light snow for Tuesday night at a low of -17, and that'll continue into Wednesday, also with a high of -17 to start the month of February. That's your updated weather forecast. I'm James Dunn. The news starts right now.
Seems like we have full volume on our phono stage, but when I go to the tuners, they're quiet.
Your anniversary of the blockade in
And the auxiliary, we've got hum on that too. Now, that switch has been damaged or not. I hope not, because it would be a nightmare to rewire this. Ground. Alright, I guess the first thing we should do is confirm our power supplies are working. I don't have any reason to think they're not. This power supply board supplies a +35 and a +13.5, and I believe the 13.5 is what feeds the tuners. So let's here we go. Let's turn it on. And I believe these two connections down here. So this one here reads 35.5 and 12.7. That's a little low. Should be 13.5. I don't know if that's being dragged down for some reason or if that's just okay. Okay, so this point here and here are the outputs of the FM tuner. These transistor H313 and I think it's 314 here. These are the output drivers or buffers, line amplifiers, whatever you want to call them. And that's to amplify the FM signal to line level before it goes into the function switch. So I just want to hook a scope up here and confirm if I have the correct levels. If not, we're going to have to look farther back in the tuner. If they are correct, then we have a problem somewhere else loading the signal down. So let me hook up my scope and have a look. Okay, I got my scope hooked up to the outputs here. That is connection J, 312 and 314. 313 is the ground, the black wire. So let's turn this on and see. Let's hook it up for FM. Okay. Now we needed some kind of a program material here. That's 100 millivolts per division on the scope. Seems pretty quiet on the tuner output. 100 millivolts. The signal should be 3 times higher than that or more. Okay, let me feed a signal into the tuner from my signal generator. So there's 1,000 hertz tone modulated on 88 megahertz. You can see you're getting good amplitude. I don't think this tuner is really healthy. I don't know why it's so quiet though. That's half volume, and it's still really not that loud. Muting totally cuts it out. Muting is not a function of the FM though. I think muting, what about this back here, this muting control? Is that broken? No, it's not broken. Seems to have no effect. Something is not working here. I think we got a sick tuner, that's what the problem is. But why would it also affect the AM as well? Because they're totally independent. Oh, there's, sounds like DC on the line. You got a problem with what is going on with this thing? Alright, so I'm scoping off the outputs for the tape monitors. So this is your line output from all the switching, all the muting, all the signals. Once they're prepared, they go out to the tape output. And this is before any preamplifier, anything like that. So it should be a clean signal going out. And I have my scope hooked up, and I have DC turned on. So let's turn on this receiver. You can see there's a bit of a jump there. And then when I turn up the volume, you get that sound of DC. Let me turn this up. Okay, so let's shut this off again. See, it drops 200 millivolts of division. Turn it back on. You see how we have DC on both left and right channel. If I turn up the volume, that DC is being fed through to the power amplifier. Okay, so this thing has a problem. It is experiencing a DC offset, and we need to figure out where it's coming from. So that is AM. Let's do FM, and our DC offset disappeared. Okay, and that's our signal that we're feeding in. It's very quiet. Back to AM, we have a DC. Ooh, it's not good. And this is the tape, and then auxiliary. Okay, those are clean. We have DC on the AM band. Phono is working fine. Okay, so we got to figure out what's going on here. AM has DC. All right, here's a quick look at the AM circuit. We've got our IF, IF, and then you got your detector here, and then there's a transistor amplifier, and J157, that's our output. Now I measured this capacitor C171 on this side. I have 9 volts, which isn't right because it says 4.7 here, and on the other side I measured 2.5 volts, and that should be 0 because this thick black line here is our ground. Pretty sure that's our ground. Yeah, it must be. So this should be 0 potential here, 0 potential here, because it's through a 100K resistor. I'm getting 2.5 volts, 9 volts. Something's not quite right here. This capacitor could be defective. It was replaced with a ELNA CELMAC capacitor. So I'm going to have a good look at this circuit, what's going on, why I have 9 volts here when I should have 4.7. Yeah, this is our 13 volt supply up here. Comes down through a 100 ohm resistor, through a 5.6K, should be 4.7 volts. Well, I'm going to do some more measuring here. I think there's something not right. Okay, so what I did is I removed C171, or whatever it is. Yeah, C171, 10 microfarad, 16 volt. Tested it, it's test fine. I didn't expect it to be bad, but I just wanted to confirm that. And let's see here, without the cap in place, this is the 3 volts going on the line going to the amplifiers, and here's the other 9.1. So I turn up the volume. I still have DC on the it seems like it's only in the right channel too. Let me confirm this. Or maybe it's both channels. I got the balance turned one way, that's why. Yeah, it's both channels. Okay, so what I did is I put the cap back in. That wasn't the issue, and I disconnected the signal output line from the AM tuner to the mode switch, and when I turn it up, DC is gone, completely gone. Alright, I think I am on to something here. You can't see my multimeter, can you? It's on the bottom here. I think the problem is I got on continuity. Here's my ground connection. So according to this schematic, this is a ground trace for the circuit, and J153 and J158. J158 goes off to the loop stick antenna and is grounded there. It shows it being grounded to the chassis. Okay. 153 is supposed to be connected to, I don't know, I haven't searched this line out, so it's connected to something. If I look on here, J153 has no connection at all. Nothing there. And J158 is connected to the antenna bar, but I have no ground connection whatsoever for this circuit. And I am on AM. Let me see, I got the power off. Let me switch through. So it's not a switched ground. It is a missing ground. And I don't think that ground was ever put there from the factory. I don't, it's never been soldered. It's completely not there. So that explains why we have a huge DC offset, because we don't have a ground potential to reference it to. So I'm going to connect this wire back up. This is the, this is kind of a pain here. Okay, let's connect this wire back up. See if I can do this. And then we have to figure out why we have no ground. This wire at J153, I'm gonna go and check and see where it's supposed to come from. Okay, so for J153, it shows it going back to the tuning capacitor and grounding here. So I'm gonna let's power this thing up and get an AM signal of some kind. Yeah, well, let's not. Okay, I'm going to ground this. Our DC's gone.
But just couldn't get the 5% down saved. We were and she's building equity for herself, not her landlord.
That's really weird.
The Colin Bruce Mortgage Team at 436-2511. At the Nissan Institute of Creology, we're field testing the 2023 Rogue in extreme Canadian winter conditions. Let's see how the intelligent all-wheel drive impacts our driver's confidence. What's your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, 10. That's confident. Now, trees, see some Creology. These the 2023 Rogue from the
Okay, FM.
Well, interesting. What else?
Not picking up any stereo signals, that's another problem we're having.
Landed. And yeah, you tried.
care and they look after him and do all his checkups and check his heart and just love to see him. He's a happy, healthy 9-month-old.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. The dial pointer lamp is out too. I'm gonna have to add a ground wire here. It doesn't look. I don't think they added one from the factory. But how could this thing pass quality control if it didn't have a working AM system? That's really, really odd. Maybe they were relying on the ground of the board. Yeah, I think they were. They were relying on this ground here. Okay. I'll add a wire. That problem cropped up after I removed the board from the chassis, which shows me they were grounding it through that lug, which is really good practice. You should have a wire. Alright, so on to the FM. Why do we have no signal on the FM? That's the other thing I don't like. Okay, let's fix this up. Alright, I'm still scratching my head over this one. This tuner is not performing the way it should. There's something wrong with it. And I don't know, it has this really complicated auto muting and stereo mode auto selecting circuit, and I read through it and there's more written up about this muting circuit than there is for the whole tuner. So it's a complicated system. Is supposed to do something, I don't know, auto mute. But let me show you the scope here. So that's the signal coming out of the tuner right now, and that's you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but it's 100 millivolts of division, so it's a fairly weak signal. And I can turn up the volume. You can hear it.
And we want to hear from you. What programs do you like?
Now I have absolutely no stereo indication. The stereo circuits are not kicking in. I don't know what's that. Is that alignment or what does that? But I just want to show you for contrast. Here's the signal that comes out of the FM tuner, and I confirm this by connecting my scope directly to the outputs of the tuner, and I get the same signal level. So this is being fed through to the amplifiers. Now if I switch it to auxiliary, you'll see I got my 1000 hertz tone there. You see how the amplitude changes? Now that's my regular amplitude tone that I use for all my amplifier testing. That's 1 volt peak to peak, and it is quite a contrast to what's coming out of the tuner. Let's see here, turn this up. You can hear the tone. Turn it back to FM, and it's very quiet. So where do I start looking for this? I don't know. So whoever did the recapping on this receiver went through and recapped everything that I can see. I don't see any old caps left in the machine, but I'm wondering if this thing had a problem before or maybe a problem after the recap. Attributed to the recap, I'm not sure. Maybe there's a mistake. I checked and I don't see any caps installed backwards. I can't find any installed backwards, but that could be I know Marantz. I don't know how their boards are marked, but I'm just trying to eliminate all the causes here. Now, we don't have any FM stereo, which means to think that if I go through and do an alignment, that should come back. But for whatever reason, we still have this low. Here, I'll do AM. I'll show you this low output on the tuners, and it's the same on the AM as well. Some of these stations are very weak, which tells me it might need might be something wrong with the AM tuner as well, or a broken connection or something to that effect. So I'm going to keep plugging away here and find what I can, and I'll report back to you when I get more into this. Okay, so I pulled this cover off. Where is it? This shielded cover. It was on this circuit. Removed it to inspect, and I found a couple things. This green wire here was pinched under the shield. I don't think it was grounded out, but it was cut. It does have a cut in it. But the main problem here is I found a broken connection on this coax. So this is the signal wire of the coax, not the ground. And it's broken off a pin J205. And I think that is the output of this circuit. And this J205, I don't know where it goes. It goes to the top side of the... I should follow it and see where it goes. But I think this is a huge problem. Broken wire. That's from manipulating the board. When the guy did the recapping, he flipped it over and manipulated the board. You know, probably did it one too many times, and that wire snapped. And that's an easy thing to miss when you're putting it back together. You got to check for that kind of stuff. But then, you know, the tuner is working. It's picking up stations. So that's. I'm going to fix this wire and see if we brought back our FM. Okay. Okay. So I repaired the wire. Sounds like I have my FM back. Good volume. Got the stereo light coming on. It's still not. I think it needs an alignment for sure. And there's the signal on my scope now. It's more than 100 millivolts, that's for sure. So that's what it should have looked like. Turn this down because it's too high. 200 millivolts division. 300 or 500, I mean. 500 millivolts of division. We have nice signal now. We're getting our stereo light. It's locked in. So things are looking up here. Let's test the AM while we're at it. AM is still really quiet.
This example will help reduce.
I don't know if that's going to be alignment. I'm going to try an alignment and see if I can help this thing out. But glad I got the FM sorted. So I'm going to look over this board, make sure it's all good, clean it, put it back together, and then I have a few other things I need to do here. Cleaning, and I still have to change those two transistors. There's actually a Marantz service bulletin for these two transistors, the 2SC458s. They want us to replace them with 2SC1775s, and I think I have some here. I actually look, and if I can't, I can put 2240s, 2SC 2240s, or 2SC 1845s will work in that application as well. So I'm going to do that yet. We still need to figure out why we have low output on the AM tuner. That was really odd that we had output low on both tuners, but one of them was a broken wire. Okay, so I decided to pull out one of the amplifiers. This is the one that's been previously out by the other tech. You can see some soldering that's been going on here. Just want to clean this up. Let's pull this crap off. And this one too, I think. This one here is, and they cut off the wire and they leave the part that's wrapped on, and then they come along and solder more on top of it. It's just a big blob. I'm cleaning this off. It takes a few minutes. Wow, this is really wrapped on there. Now, I just want to remove the board. And have a good look at the other side. It's just mainly looking for cracked solders and whatnot, because if this thing's 40-45 years old and it's never seen a tech, there's a good chance there's probably maybe some problems. I'm going to remove this. This screw is stripped. Replace that. Okay. All right. There it is. It all looks good. Soldering looks good. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure for peace of mind. I had to look at this. And everything looks good. So I'm just going to clean it and put it back together. What is this? Let me see here. Here's this big capacitor here, 1 microfarad, 100 volts. Monster cap. I wonder if that's leaking. Could check it. That's the input. That's the input blocking capacitor. I could test that if it's got any leakage. Let's do that. .7 ohms? That can't be right. If I turn up the frequency, it drops to 1 ohm. I don't know if I trust that meter. I'm going to try another meter here. So we're getting about 500K. So that capacitor is leaking. Let's replace that. That's because that's a DC blocking, and that will upset the amplifier if any DC comes through here. So let's replace this. 1 microfarad. I have some brand new capacitors I bought, 2.2 microfarad, and they will work in this application. I think I'm going to replace it. Yeah, I think these are paper, to be honest. 1 microfarad plus minus 20%, 100 working volts. But definitely got a resistance across it. So it's not a capacitor anymore, it's a resistor. And there it is. It still reads it's going up in megohms though. I wonder if this board is. Oh, that's what I was reading there. That should be, let's see. It's open circuit. Maybe this cap is good. I need to get my cap testing rig built. I got one, I'm halfway through constructing it. And sure could have used it here. And these are high quality film caps. Alright, give that a clean, put it back together. This is what I use for cleaning boards. It works pretty good. Other than isopropyl alcohol, this is the next best thing. Well, actually it is better than isopropyl, but let's give it a good soaking and a scrub. I know a lot of people leave the flux on, but I like to take it off. I think it gives the board a nice look, clean look. Plus it makes it easier to see if there's any cracks or defects. So let's just give it a little bit more. We're good. And it makes it nice for the next guy that comes along. You see it all nice and clean, you know it's somebody took the time to clean it. Details. Okay, I think that looks good. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it back together. A little bit of smudges on it, but who cares? I got put this thing back together and color good. So this is the other amplifier from the other channel. And I'm kind of glad I took these out and had a look at them. These four screws were loose. The mounting hardware for these TO66 transistors. And yeah, I tightened them down. Everything else looks good. Checking the soldering on especially these pins. And everything looks good. I'm going to clean this up and put it all back together. But alright, now that I got all the gremlins worked out of everything else, time to focus back again on the AM tuner, which is not working. Well, it works, I can hear. If I turn it full blast and I tune, there's my signal generator. Doesn't deflect the needle at all. There's some local stations come in very weak. It just sounds distorted too. So let's go back to my beacon signal. I'm feeding it 250 microvolts, and I have it on this radiating loop here, and that's by the antenna feeding in. So it should peg the meter, but it's not even nudging it. So what's going on here? Do we have a problem with... I'm just going to take a clip lead and clip it to some of these inputs here on this tuning cap. Goes louder, goes quieter. Is the AM input I'm touching, and it makes absolutely no difference. It's almost like it's not connected. I'm wondering if the wiring for this loop antenna is broken. I'm gonna have to get a ohm meter out. I looked at the schematic and they don't show the internal structure of the loop antenna. They just show a box with 4 wires coming in, and that really doesn't tell me much. I'm assuming there's 2 coils in here in the loop. One will be yeah, I think there's probably 2 coils in there, and then you got your gangs of tuning capacitors, and everything else is right here in this circuit. And so either I have a dead stage somewhere in this IF or somewhere here, or something's open here. So let me get my ohm meter out and start checking the stuff. I think I'm going to start by checking for continuity on these. There should be 2 coils there, that's what I'm assuming. And let me shut this all off and I'll start checking. Alright, I'm just going to take some voltage readings here. I got the thing turned on, and I'm going to start at the beginning. H transistor 151, which is this one. This is the first transistor on the input. It's not clear where the oscillator is. I think this is the oscillator, I'm not sure. So anyways, let me check this out. I got it full volume. Here we got 10, 11 volts. 2.6 volts. 2.0 volts, so we have our 0.6. Okay, that one looks okay. This is transistor 152, which is the next stage after this transformer. So base, 2 volts, collector, 11. See if I can do this without shortening anything out. And we got 1.4 volts, which is our 0.6 volts. Okay, so then it goes through these two cans, and it goes to transistor 153, which is the next one in the stage in the series. This thing has two transformers and looks like a crystal resonator inside between the two stages. Okay, so let's look at this one. I'm going to turn the volume down. Collector, 8.4 volts. Hit the base. Oh, there's our signal. We're injecting a signal into the remainder of the... and we're getting all our channels at once. Okay, so that's active and working. So between here and here, we got a break, and something is not connecting and letting the signal flow through. I'm going to take my scope and scope these and see if we have a signal on these ones. I don't think these stages are dead. I think they're just not connected to that one. Okay, let me get my scope ready. Alright, so here's a look at the collector of transistor 152. Oops. You see there's our oscillator signal. If I turn the tuning, it's changing. It's working. I didn't doubt this wasn't working, but I just wanted to confirm. Here's diode 156, I think it is. I don't see 156 on the schematic here. 159, 157, I don't see 156. Okay, let's check for other 154 transistor. Doesn't seem to be doing much. Emitter collector. Okay. So as far as I can tell, we got a break somewhere between this transistor and this transistor. I don't know if this one's doing anything. Oh, that was, okay, that was the one this is the oscillator, 152. Sorry, that's my mistake, because that's the one I was just probing, and it had the signal on. 152, okay. So I don't know if this transistor is working, 151. It possibly is, but the signal levels are so low I can't really see anything. So this is working, this is questionable. This is working if I inject a signal. Somewhere between here and here there's a break, and I think it's probably one of these cans. Maybe I got an open winding, or I don't know. I'm gonna have to take it apart and take a look. So we'll get this sorted, don't worry. Let's see here. Let me shut this off, and let's remove the board and flip it over and do some ohm readings on those transformers, just to confirm that they are in circuit. Okay, I believe I found the problem. I gave this a good clean with some alcohol and scrubbed it down so I could have a good inspection. And now I see what's going on here. Look at this, where this capacitor is here. Previous tech put this capacitor in. Let's see if I can get it to focus for you. This here is your, well, this is ground plane right here. All this around here is ground plane. And this capacitor is connected to ground plane. And here's the active side of it that's positive. And this is a transformer connection. And you can see the solder bridge between the two. I don't know if you can see that. It's very hard to see. But if I clean up that solder bridge, I'll bet you this will come back to life. So let's try this right now. I don't even have my iron warmed up. Just give me a minute to warm up my iron. Just so you know, there is a short here, and you can't really see it on the viewfinder. I'm looking here at the viewfinder. I don't see it. I'm just going to continuity between the ground and that connection is a short. Definitely shorted. And that would make sense why we have such low signal. It's getting grounded as it goes through that transformer can. Okay, so let's see if we can clean this up. Can't really see anything here. Making it worse. Let me see. I gotta get some. Let's get some flux on here. A little bit of solder sucker. It's like the wire from the capacitor is bridging. That's what it is. So let me pull this wire back. There we go. Okay. It's going to reflow this joint. Yeah, it wants to go back. All right. So effectively, what was shorted, I'll show you. I get a pointy device. This here is that double transformer can. And they have one connection that comes out here and then goes right back in again. And then they have another connection that comes out here and goes right back in again. And then there's grounding. And you can see it here. This connection comes out, goes back in. And comes out here, goes back in. Grounding. I've got 3 connections on this side, 3 connections on this side. So it should work. Let me turn it on. Let's enjoy the AM.
You know,
It's working.
for no reason. Thank you so much for calling though. Thank
Know how much longer these opportunities will be available.
Coming in nice and strong. Get meter deflection now. So it's fixed. Everything's working. Okay, great. Let me put it all back together. All right, so I was going through doing the AM/FM alignments. The AM went well. I received quite a bit of gains on the tuner, and it's performing a little better than when it came in here. So that's good. I'm working on the FM. Went through the RF front end, and pretty much couldn't get any gains on this. Going through and doing the discriminator, and it brought it back in. The tuning meter was way off cocked on one side, and that brought it back. But problem I have now is the stereo lamp's burned out. It was working before, but it's not now. And I checked, it does have 12 volts across it, and it's not lit up. So I'm going to go in here and replace that lamp. I think all the other lamps are good. The dial lamp, the pointer lamp is intermittent. It blinks on and off sometimes. So I'm going to address that as well. I might end up putting an LED in here. Looks like somebody's been at it before. There's tape around here. or maybe that's factory, I don't know. It's got tape around it. So I'll deal with that and deal with that, and then it needed to come apart anyways. It needs a cleaning. A lot of dust that gets down in here, so I'll do that as well, and then I can get back on track with the FM alignment. Alright, so just going through and doing the amplifier adjustments. There's a few of them here. You got your DC balance, the one that sets your 0 volts on your output, and what does it say? Oh, no, sorry. The first one is power supply. Yeah, I forgot about that one. 35 volts. Here's a little regulator for 35 volts. So you connect your probes to J802 and 803, and then adjust the trimmer R809 for 35 volts. And that sets up power supply. And then you move on to do your DC offset. And then connect your probes to your speaker output, no speaker, and adjust R762 to show 0, and that's the one on top here. This first one, this one is a bias, this one is your DC offset. Marantz didn't make it easy for the connections, because the connections they reference are buried down inside there, and if you're lucky, you can get your clip on. Same with this other amplifier. This one's flipped over, but access it from the bottom, and but they don't make it easy to get to the connections, and plus it's very confusing. For step 3, for example, idle current adjustment. Connect a VTM between pin terminals J753 and J754. Okay. So I go on here and look at 753 and 754. I connect the voltmeter and it shows 48 volts. So that's not right. So what do I do there is they made a mistake here in the text. So it should be connect a voltmeter between pin terminals J756 and 754. 756 is your speaker output. 754 is the other end of this resistor. So they want to set for 5 millivolts, and what you're doing is you're measuring across one resistor, 5 millivolts. If you measured across both resistors, you'd get 10 millivolts. It might be easier to do it that way. You'd have to connect at J760 and J754 to get both resistors. But either way works. And then set your bias. Yeah, again with no speakers, volume turned down, all that stuff. Phono amplifier adjustment, I'm going to do that next. Maybe I can do it with you guys here. Let's set up for it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set up the phono amplifier. There's 2 adjustments here, one for each channel. And to do this adjustment, you'll need to feed in a, probably you're on a 100 millivolt sine wave from your signal generator. It's got to be adjustable. Feed it into the phono input. And on the output, I'm scoping on the output at the record jacks that lead out the back. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start turning up the amplitude on the signal generator, and we'll get our sine wave. And we want to adjust this just to the point of clipping. Keep going up until it starts clipping. There it is. Okay, so we got clipping on the bottom, but not the top yet. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to adjust one amplifier at a time here. Let's try this one first. I'm not sure which channel this is. Let's see. Okay, that's the top one. That's the left channel. So what we want to do is symmetrical clipping on both top and bottom. So I think we're right about. Need a better screwdriver. Oops. freak it out. Okay, I'm going to set that one right about there. Let's set this one right about there. I'm going to turn the amplitude down, get rid of the clipping. It's pretty close there, I think. I think we got right there for both of them, I think. Let me turn this down. What am I feeding it? I'm feeding it 340 millivolts. And we're getting on the output, we're getting something like, well, I got 5 volts of division, 10 volts in division. So what is that? That's like 30 volts. Turn it down a bit. So we got a little bit too much clipping on that left one. And turn this off a bit. It just sets the zero balance point for the amplifiers to the midway. All right, I think we're done. All right, so that's it for this Marantz. Got the repairs done on the both tuners. Wasn't expecting to find a fault with the FM. The owner only told me about the AM tuner and problem with that one. And I think they were both symptoms of the previous tech going in and doing the recap. Now, I don't like bashing on previous techs because they try their best, and sometimes they f up, and sometimes I do too. So I don't. You can't be critical of them. But hey, when you do a recap like that, you got to turn it on and test all the functions, before you give it back to the customer. That's the basics. And I don't think that was done. Maybe it was done, and he heard a signal, but it was so quiet and weak, he thought maybe that was normal. I don't know. But anyways, it's working good now. AM, FM is both working. I get stereo pickup. AM's working like a champ. The amplifier is working like a champ now. Got them all biased up and set. And everything's a go for this. So I'll get it back to the customer now. So take care, and we'll see you on the next one.